Welcome back to Alley Cat Paint and Design. Today we're going to be working on a second hose reel like this one. We got cedar posts, cedar boards that go across to support the hose reel. Hose reel that we're putting on this will be different. You'll see it later. And then we've got these copper post caps. They just rest on it. They're not screwed down or anything. But that's what we're going to be doing. So what I've done, I've taken the liberty to get started, because cutting the notches is a lengthy process. As you can see, I've got those posts already cut, notched. They're cut to length. And here's the tool that I use for that. This is a Craftsman Power radial arm miter saw. So it moves in several different directions, back and forth. That's the radial. Then the base of it moves so that you can cut on an angle. Then you can loosen this wheel and tilt it this way as well. So what I do is I take the 4x4 that we're using and I put it on here, and because of the way the blade is with its curvature, I can't get the blade all the way back, so I put a block in here to bring my material out further. Once the material is out further, then I can start to cut the notches. And in order to not cut all the way through, I have to use this. This is a depth gauge, and by screwing this down and then putting this piece in its way, just like that, it prohibits it from going all the way down. So I have not a complete cut. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I can stick my finger underneath the blade here because there's room. So depending on how high or low you put that will determine how high or low your blade is. Okay, so I'm sorry I'm not showing you that. I told you I was going to try to be more detailed in my videos to help people understand. There just isn't, you don't want to sit here for half an hour and watch me cut these. But you just take that saw and you just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you've got your notch cut out. There are other ways to cut those notches, but that's how I do it. Now what I'm going to show you today is we got some problems. See this hole? And this crack goes all the way down. And then over here, this is so wore out because these are used timbers. This fell off when I started to clean the material. We prefer to use old material, but we want this particular look. We like the red dyed lumber, and you get that best with cedar. Cedar also is supposed to not be an attractant to termites and things like that. So several reasons to use it. Otherwise, I would be removing this. I could lop that off and I could apply a new piece. Same thing over there. There's different ways to fix it. But here's what we're going to do. I'm going to glue this back down. I've already pre-drilled a hole. Over here I pre-drilled a hole because this is also a little flimsy. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little bit of stain down in the crack. That way it's ready, and later on I will come back in and I will run epoxy in that crack and to fill that hole. And then if I need to, I'll put some epoxy up here at this end as well to help fill that up. Now, I told you in my intro video, I like to use things that you just would never use or think to use. This is a piece of plastic out of a 3-ring binder. You put that in and then you put your papers in, etc. A little bit rigid, so what I would do is I will probably come in here and cut this to fit this right here, and then use that as part of my dam to allow me to fill that hole with epoxy. So why not? Who cares? It's just a piece of plastic. I'll peel it off when it's done and throw it in the trash. So, but you can use all kinds of things, not necessarily for what they were intended for. Why not? I got some screws here. Now, I certainly recommend you always pre-drill when you're doing things like this. This is already flimsy, and you will break it further. And there's no need to put glue in this because it's not touching down here. I would be gluing nothing. So I'm just going to leave it like it is. Got me a tool here to use as a shim because I don't want to close it. Closing it would change the dimensions. There we go. Now that should be firmer, definitely held better. And then when I go in here and I fill this cavity and the crack with the epoxy, should be a lot stronger. So that's that one. Now this one, I am going to use a little bit of glue. I've used Titebond for a number of years. I have used many others. I have used Gorilla Glue. I have used other forms of wood glue. As a matter of fact, I've done woodwork so long I don't even remember my first type of wood glue. Titebond has kind of taken over. And there's different variants of Titebond even. Titebond, I think in the house I have Titebond 2. But it doesn't really matter. Figure out what you like and go with it. Again, who cares? There's going to be benefits to one and each other, etc. Okay, so there we go. A little bit of glue. Again, kind of like with the other one, I'm not going to want to go crazy tight with this. I don't really want it changing the shape. I still need it to maintain a 4x4. Now, one would also ask, well then why in the world are you using it? It is so rotten and wore out. Don't forget here. Okay, look, this is the first low notch. This is the next top notch. And the hose reel will go here. So this, once it's all done and being constructed and filled in with epoxy, just like that side, it'll have the cap, like what's right there, sitting over it to help keep water out of it. And the cap will help cover, so you won't even see some of that. Then once the board is in place over here, you definitely won't see that hole. So why not? Why not use it? So, okay, so set those things aside. Again, before you get started, make sure you have all your tools, right? Drill. Couple of drills if you prefer, glue, all my tools here. And now this is what I'm going to use as my stain. This is what we've been using, on a lot of projects here. This is a chip brush, what's called a chip brush. We like to use these because for a lot of projects, now if I'm doing serious painting, I will not use them because when it comes to serious painting, you need a good brush. This is one area where I will definitely attest to the equipment that you use. These are cheap. So use these because then you can discard them. Now, you'll figure out when you're painting or staining or dyeing or putting on lacquer or polyurethane when you can and cannot keep or reuse a brush. Typically when I poly, lacquer, if I can clean the brush out, I kind of do, but those take paint thinner and it's a lot more work. So usually I try not to keep brushes if I don't have to, unless I'm painting with a water-based paint. Those are easy, it's soap and water, right? So this one, as you can see, it's been used, but this stuff is like a stain. So if you kind of clean your brush out, at least to an extent, it's still pliable, as you can see. It's still pliable. It's a little rigid, but it will soften. As I wet it and start to fill this crack and stuff, it will soften back up because it's re-wet. But I got paper towels, I have a trash can, I got my brush, I got my stirring stick. Because remember, again, no matter how long ago it was you used whatever it is, paint or stain or lac or whatever, stir it up. I have already stirred this, but I will do it again real quick here because they will have, these chemicals will settle to the bottom. And they could be the kind of chemicals that help solidify your project, just like that. No big deal. I had already stirred it a few minutes ago. And then again, not to necessarily be wasteful, I keep my stirring sticks, just like my popsicle sticks for painting, but at least wipe it off. Now let's get this out of the way. I'm done with this at the moment. Not really filling anything on that. It's this one that I am. The reason I'm filling this, and I'm not really filling the whole thing, is because when the epoxy dries, it should be clear. And I don't want you to see, or I don't particularly want to see unstained wood inside this crack. Now I'm going to stop probably at this knot right here. I don't think there's much sense going further. Because I can epoxy here on up. But epoxy, what is epoxy, right? It's just glue. It's just going to help hold this board together better, longer. And I might even decide prior to epoxying, I'm going to consider and think about it. I might come in here and put a couple of screws front to back to help make sure this stays together even longer. Just going to try and prolong its life a little bit longer, that's all. It is going to sit out in the elements, I don't know why you'd have a hose reel in your house, so it will be outside, and so it will be in the elements. I don't know where you live, but here we can have pretty extremes, hots and colds. I want to do the best I can to prolong its life. Also, I don't know about you, I don't know where it is you live, but what if I decide I'm going to move, but I don't move for 10 years? Well, I don't want it falling apart in less than 10 years, just like that. Now, as you can see, I also did not go all over this top edge. One thing that you'll learn when you do woodwork and you stain material is that when you have put stain on an outside surface like this and then you go to put it on again, that will be darker than the rest. I tried my best to stay as inside the crack as possible, not working outside the crack. So I'm going to let that dry. Next step would be to epoxy. All right, here we go. We're going to work on this post. Like I told you, we're going to fill this crack with epoxy. Now, I did start to fill it and had trouble with my camera. So let's start over here a little bit. I cut the plastic, and these are the pieces that came from the 3-ring binder. And then I got 3 cups here. One is for the regular resin. This is for the resin hardener. And then this is for them to be mixed together. I made these wedges because I wasn't sure how much I was going to make and how much I would need to fill. And so we dam up a certain point, we mix some up and then we pour it in and see where we go. Now I use this to cut too thick, but I wanted to be sure I didn't have trouble, so I use these bigger shears. I'm also going to use tape to dam up certain areas. I use tape here on the end. I was going to stop at this knot because most of this is going to be underground, but I went ahead and put some in there just for grins and giggles. Now that is dry to the touch, but it is still tacky. Now this resin, I don't know if you're familiar with resin, but this resin, the instructions describe how you're supposed to use it, how you're supposed to mix it, the temperature, but I'm doing this outside because usually this resin doesn't smell very good. It kind of smells like burnt flesh or burnt hair. They described that you're supposed to shake the contents of the bottles before you use them. Well, they're both just a clear or empty solution. I'm not sure what shaking them would do other than put air bubbles in them. But, and you don't necessarily want air bubbles in every project. You're going to have to decide what you want in yours. This one, it doesn't really matter. I see I got a little bit of bubbling there, but it doesn't really matter. This is really just to fill this to help adhere them together and help prolong the life of this old piece of material. And they say you have 41 minutes. It's pliable for 41 minutes. And I'll be honest, my experience with resin is not 41 minutes. It's more like less than 10. But we're going to pour these guys together, the proper amounts. You need a 1-to-1 scale ratio, which means, let's just use for instance, half a cup. If I use half a cup of this, I need half a cup of that. And you stir. You don't want to go sit, just keep going in the same direction. The instructions also say you should stir for several minutes. And what you're looking for is the resin will get cloudy. I don't know if we can really see that because the cup is white. A lot of the times in the past when I've worked with epoxy, I have used clear cups so that it's easier to see. But the slower you go, the less chance of whipping bubbles into it. But again, I'm not worried about bubbles. But if you do get bubbles in it, you can get the bubbles out. Once you've poured it on whatever it is you want to pour it on, you use a heat gun or a hair dryer. A heat gun I think works best. You just don't want to get too close. You don't raise to the surface, which they do a lot of times. So if we've watched our temperature, another thing they say is if you're using the epoxy in wintertime, it might be a bit chilly, or in the dead of summer, of course, if it's in your house and it's at room temperature, it in a warmer setting. So like this stuff, when I went to use it earlier when my recorder did not record, I had let it set outside. It's quite warm today, so I let it set outside and get away from that room temperature. And so that's where we're at now. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's probably good. Clean off my stirring stick and set it aside. I'll use it again later, I'm sure. And I've set up this about right. I bet that's going to be more than enough to fill that area. I'm not worried about it if it goes a little further. Not worried about that at all. I also, as you can see here, I cut some pieces already. Those are to help with this very bad hole right here. So we got our wood. We're all prepared. We got all of our materials. Got everything we should need. Got some extra paper towels. Let's see what we can do here. Definitely got some on the surface there, and that's not what I wanted. I think before I go too far here, I'm going to put a piece right here. if it decides it's going to come out of that knot out into my cut zone, maybe that'll help stop that. So that looks pretty good. Now, there's a good chance that this is going to ooze past my dam here, and that's okay. I'm not worried about it. So, use more of what's in my cup there if it allows me to pour it. We shall see. I put this epoxy back here from this knot up quite a while ago, and it is solid to the touch. Now, it's not hard yet, but it is solid. That gives you an idea. I put it in at 6 o'clock, and I was going to come check it out, at 7 p.m., 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., give it an hour, and it is not solid. Not hard, pardon me. It is solid, but not hard. We're going to leave it at that. I can see where I finished pouring was back here, and it's trickling forward, filling a little bit more of this crack. So let me pour a little more here. Okay. The instructions did say that this stuff can take hours to cure. Seeing as though I've put it in fairly thick in its width and fairly deep in its depth, I'm going to probably agree with that. I really could not imagine this that I poured a while back not being drier than it is. I mean, and it is dry. It's not just like coming out, but I shouldn't be able to touch it and leave indents, but there is. That's okay. It's a start. We got the ball rolling. Let's see what happens next time. Okay, here we are back looking at our post that we were epoxying, and this epoxy down in here, it's settled a little bit. Not so worried about what's down here, but there's some air bubbles right here. From about there on, it's definitely settled. It's going to take another coat, but I came out after 24 hours and checked it, and it is hard, just like it should be. Started thinking, I had told everyone that I'm not used to epoxy taking so long to dry, but there are different types of epoxy, different brands, and they're all going to work in their own way. So perhaps this particular brand is just that way. Doesn't matter. Let's fill this end so that technically once this whole end, this block area is finished, we should have a dam here, and then we should be able to start to fill this back to here. But let's assume we're going to have two. Now, again, we have everything set up. I let my resin acclimate. It did say to stir it. I thought maybe at first the reason it was taking so long to dry is maybe it did need to be stirred. I don't know. It's kind of got a milky sheen to it. This is the hardener part. So I thought, well, let's just shake it. What's it going to hurt? So I have been shaking it for a while now as it acclimates. But I got me a tack hammer, and I got me some little furniture tacks. I got my heavy duty clippers. I got me some scissors. I've already started tearing off some tape pieces because working with the tape with gloves is not easy. And I went ahead and applied the bottom cap piece. So this will stop it from coming through this hole. You might be able to see from the image, there's a crack here. So I tacked this on in hopes that it really helps hold it in place better. We're going to run tape all the way around it to help hold it in as well, so that if anything seeps out, the tape will catch it. But one thing you got to think about too, not only do we get everything ready and available, so we don't have to stop. I got paper towels, I got everything that we should need. You also need to keep in mind, how is this going to dry to keep it from wanting to leak all the way through? So how are we going to keep this from leaking out everywhere? If we turn it back on its side, it's all going to want to leak out this hole. So I have a table set up with a clamp so that when I'm done and it's standing upright, so that all this stays down here where it belongs, it doesn't leak out. So keep that in mind. Once you poured this stuff, you got to have that stuff, you got to be ready for those things. Always be thinking ahead. I've got the end cap piece on this other side. Pretty apparent that I need something. This little crack, I did put some, as you can see, I put some finish on it, but I don't think anything's going to come out this, but it definitely is going to come out that hole and this hole. I went ahead and kind of filled this crack as well, because even if I cover this and tape it, it may still want to follow that crack to the edge here. And so I wanted pre-finish, because once the epoxy is on the surface of the wood, you're not putting anything behind it. So, pretty simple. Let's just cut us a piece. Could have marked the plastic, but just like that. It doesn't have to be fancy. And I'm going to go pretty close to the edge here, but I don't really need to go too far over here or over here. So why waste your time and energy making a big old piece that's really not necessary? But let's throw a few tacks in hopes that it doesn't move on us. I don't know about you watching this, but I can see there's the hole and here's the hole with this crack. So I'm kind of just going around that. This is the first time I have used this type of plastic to kind of wall off or dam up an area. We may learn together that this was a terrible way to do this because the plastic won't come off or who knows what. Kind of don't think that's going to be the case, but we'll see. I didn't notice this the other day, but I did prep this crack. I can see this white plastic through this crack. So that crack needs something as well to dam it up. Again, we won't go completely to the end. The tape will, but this is definitely going to cover that. Okay, and then we're back to our original crack that we need to fill all the way down. So, now that we've got that, let's tape. I think I'm going to start by covering both the bottom and the side. And then just start wrapping the corners. Okay, now that's not, let's turn it this way. Press real hard. This isn't the stickiest tape in the world. It's painter's tape. So, but it will stick, and it will stick all right there if you... Almost didn't think about the crack there. Let's cut us a piece for that. Now this one I may not want it clear to this end, but I definitely want it clear to this end. Okay, so we're going to do that. Pulling out a few more tacks here. These are wraps around the bottom edge. Make sure that there's enough that it comes up on the side. This is kind of my second insurance to be sure that stuff doesn't want to come out from underneath that plastic and ooze out. So it's wrapped on the edge, and then I have wrapping. This is another one of those things that you should just be prepared to use and not always have around because you've used it and you can't remember. You didn't remember to buy it when you went to the store. Tape, sandpaper, glue. Just get used to the idea if you're going to be a crafty person or a building person that those are things that you're going to use and they will be gone and you will have to replace them and replace them and replace them. Probably one more loop here. I would say that should suffice. It doesn't mean it's going to 100% stop the epoxy from running out, but I think it should do a pretty decent job. Alright, so remember the other day, 3 cups, 1 for each, so we can measure and have an idea how much that we have used from each bottle, because it's a 1-1 ratio. 1 cup of this, 1 cup of that, or half cup, or quarter cup, whatever it is, it's got to be the same. This is a pretty good hole here, so I'm going to use a little bit and we'll see where we're at. I need to mix some more, we'll mix some more. I'm actually going to kind of doubt it. I mean, it's going to be possible. I'm not going to mix enough the first go around, but definitely have more hardener than I do the regular epoxy, so let's add a little bit more. And I've got my handy stirring stick ready, so now we pour them together into the same cup. Let's see what happens here. Now, definitely not near enough, so let's leave that right there and let's make some more. Way too much. That's okay. I can see with the bubbles coming out, it's already gotten lower. I don't know if the camera showed it very well, but as I took this off towards the cavity, it actually sunk down in to the existing epoxy. We'll just watch it, and as it continues to bubble out, I'll put some more. One thing we can do is take a look around it. I see some right here at the top edge of the tape. I don't see any on the table, so it's not leaking out. That's a good thing. Let's give it a minute. Let it continue to sink down in, and I'll top it off. Next step for our post, as you can see, I've got it all, this main cavity filled, and it is pretty well as dry as it's going to get, hard to the touch. And so now what I wanted to do, something I should have thought of before, was I should have used a faster drying epoxy. This JB Weld sets fast, as you can see right here, it says 5 minutes. So this is probably what I should have used with such a big cavity. What I should have done was put it in there and move it around, let it get into every little crack and crevice to really set up and get dry. Then go back and fill it with a more slow drying epoxy. Because this has been in here now for 4 days, and I probably could have worked on it a little quicker had I used something a little faster drying. We're going to try this today. JB Weld is the stuff that I have used before, fast drying, just like this 5 minute. The difference is it usually comes in 2 bottles, similar to those. They're just smaller bottles, probably 6 to 8 ounce bottles, and you just pour the 2 components together, mix them up, and you only have minutes to work with them. And this is also the stuff, for whatever reason, that stinks to high heaven. So don't want to use this inside, all right? So we're going to start by first putting it in a cup, and then we'll mix it. This comes with a tip that you can put back on to save what you have left, if there's any to save. So I'm just going to put it in. Just like that. And I don't think I'm going to use it all. I'm going to stop right there. Close it up. There we go. Now I've got what's a little bit is left in there. I'm going to take my stirring stick. You can still almost see this right here is the hardener, and this over here, the clear side, is the part A of the epoxy. We're going to mix. I told you before that it gets foggy. It is getting foggy. This stuff is a little different than those larger bottles, because I have a lot of air bubbles in here and I'm barely moving. That's all right. Now you'll see it start to clear up. I can see already it's clearing up. So clear off what's on my stirring stick. And again, we only have minutes to apply this, so you gotta move. So what I'm gonna do is pour it in. What's probably left is just dribbles. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my stick here like it's a butter knife, And I'm spreading this all over the inside of this cavity to try and help, just in case there are areas. Hopefully this will help it get in there and get real solid, so that when I've turned the whole post back onto its side to finish filling the crack here, it doesn't want to come out. As you can see, the tape started to tear, coming loose. After I had put all the epoxy in before, I had it sitting just like it is, like it is here, upright, but I had it sitting on the ground, and some of that epoxy had come out onto the ground, so when I went to pick it up, it pulled the epoxy had stuck to the ground, so it pulled the tape off. And that's okay, I'm not worried about it, it's just tape. Just like that, set that aside. Pulled me some paper towels out so they were fast ready to be grabbed if need be. I'll use this again, kind of like a knife, take off some excess. Five-minute epoxy. Set my timer here. We'll see what happens in 5 minutes. Well, for grins and giggles, I went 10 minutes instead of 5. Let's see if it's solidified. Looks pretty good to me. So, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put it down, just like that. I'm going to cut me a piece of plastic for this section right here, and we're going to start to finish filling that. Now what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to finish off this fast drying down inside this cavity. That way, for sure, what is deep down dries fairly quickly. Then I'll go back over with some of that slower stuff to finish off the top inch and a half layer. First of all, again, like usual, make sure you got all your tools and equipment handy. Here's my big cutters. Here is my plastic. I don't like how this hole is so close to the actual hole, so I'm going to turn it. And I'm going to trim that edge off so I have a 90-degree corner here. Just like that. Just like that. Then I'll come in here. I think that's going to work great. Just like that. I did not prep any tape, but that's okay. Press it in real good. There we go. I'm happy with that. Now this guy can be trimmed. That's more than sufficient. The white is far enough deep down inside the hole, I'm not worried about it. This is the cup I used a second ago. I'm not worried about it. Go ahead and throw the cap in the trash. Push out what is left. I'm not going to stir it up very much. I'm just going to put it in. Looking down in there, I could see a hole, so hopefully I can get this fast drying stuff to fill that hole so that the epoxy doesn't come out. Okay, so we're going to start our timer again. Then I'll come back over here and probably load it with some more, especially of the fast drying, or pardon me, slow drying. Well, we went 22 minutes here, and as you can see, I even put a clamp on here to help make sure that this held the plastic nice and snug. So let's take this off, and I can tell you that that worked. Maybe a little bit hard to see on the video, I don't know, but right here is a drop that had either come out or maybe I spilled it over, but it's hard. So that faster drying stuff is in there and it is solidified, so now no need for the caulk. And what we're going to do now is we're going to mix some of our slower drying stuff, just like we have been doing, to start to come in here and fill I need to backfill actually. I need to come clear back here at least and all the way down. So, and then we pour. Now because it's a little slower drying, I'm going to allow that to seep and sink down in there. And I'll use what's left over in that cup to continue to fill and top it off. All right, here we are. So I have used a chisel and fence pliers to come through and pull out all of the nails. Remember, we put plastic all the way around it to help dam it up and keep the epoxy from wanting to leak out, but that means the nails needed to come out, etc. You have to judge for yourself, but I am not concerned with getting every nail. I pulled several here, but like there's one there, I'm not worried about it. You have to decide for yourself what's okay and what's not. Those are the tools I used. I used the chisel to help pry it up a little bit, maybe even this hook if need be, and then use it like pliers to pinch the head and out it comes. So there's that. Now I also found a couple of holes here. Didn't like those. These, and especially these down here at the bottom. This is where the concrete will be. Kind of wanted those filled, so I took care of that. And I would have to say that I'm fairly happy with the way that the epoxy worked. I went ahead and went all the way down here since the concrete will be down here. I also added epoxy here. I dammed it there and put in quite a bit there and let it sink in and sink in and sink in. I don't like how it leaked out, but a couple of things that I would do differently. I'm not necessarily unhappy with the way it turned out. Again, this is for a hose reel. You're going to beat it up. It's going to be out in the elements, so I'm not so worried about it. But I think I could have got by better with a faster drying epoxy. Put it in, really tumble it around, get that epoxy in everywhere. That dries in minutes. And I don't think I would have had so much leakage out all over the end here. But I'm not really worried about it. I think it'll be just fine. Any place where you've got some excess epoxy, cut it away, chisel it away, however you want to do it. This is a coping saw, but then again, you don't have to take anything off if you don't really want to. It's totally up to you. As you can see, this is filled in quite a bit. There's a bit of excess here. I am not real worried about it. But one thing I definitely need the saw for is for these, to cut these off. Now those are stuck down in the epoxy, and I could use varying tools to get it out. I don't want to use power, and I don't want to use a hammer and chisel, so I'm just going to cut them. I don't want to use a tool that could cause them to get dislodged, causing further problems, so we'll just use a saw. Now I said there's a couple things we could have done about this epoxy. Like I said, first of all, I could have used a much faster drying epoxy, or I could have come in here and cut this right off, gone and grabbed another 4x4 and cut a block and put the block on here with screws going down. This really doesn't have any bearing on the strength of the whole process. So by replacing this, it would not have hurt at all, and I wouldn't have all this excess. I would not have had to, first of all, use all that excess epoxy, and I wouldn't have it leaked out everywhere. But that's okay. I'm not worried about it. It's going to be outside. It's going to be under the elements. Okay, so now to clean this up a little bit, see if I can't get rid of some of that excess epoxy so I can stain up here. I'm going to try this wire brush, see what it does. Use sand. You should go with the grain. I think that's a good idea even when you're doing this, because I want this texture, I want this roughness, and I want it to go the same direction as the rest of the material. So if I turn this and go against the grain, it would look different. So we'll go with the grain, and I think that's sufficient. It doesn't have to be perfect, but here's another reason why. I couldn't get some of this tape out. This should take it right off. And then, doesn't matter how clean the surface is, just needs to have some cleanliness so that I can apply the stain. I think that's good enough. That's the back. And I'm not going to do anything with the end. It's well glued, it's covered, I don't care, and we're going to put a cap over it, if you remember that. Okay, I'm also not worried about any of these other runs that have come out. Just going to leave that the way it is. There we go. So again, like I've said before in other videos, make sure you have everything you need handy. This is what I've been using for our exterior stain projects. Cabot timber oil. Now I've already stirred it and stirred it and stirred it before we started. Get ahead of the game a little bit, kind of like pulling the nails. You don't have to see everything. Make sure you get your stick all the way to the bottom, just like if you're mixing paint. You don't want anything stuck to the bottom. Those are chemicals that need to be in the rest of the material as well. If you don't have it mixed well, it will take longer to dry. It needs all those chemicals. I'm going to start with the crossboards. These are what would go across here. And I went ahead and pre-drilled holes, and I started putting screws in because those will act as feet. When I set it down on the ground, those will keep the material off of the ground. Well, there you go. I'm not going to show you staining every single board. You're just going to see it when I'm ready, got it assembled and ready to put it in the ground. So show you how we do that. All right, we're ready to install here. So as you can see, I've assembled it with a number of screws on each side. I also went ahead and pre-drilled the holes for the hose reel. And you can see this is pretty much where it's going to go. There's my porch here. There's the spigot. And as you can see, this is what we've dealt with for years. Tired of it, so we're going to get it up off the ground. But that's about where it's going to go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this area up, get ready to work. I've got everything I need. Tools, you know, trash can. I got everything that I'm going to need to get this project done like usual. I even brought my weed eater out because the intent is I'm going to put it as far away from the house as necessary to get my weed eater back there to weed eat. Just things to think about when you're working, okay? Keep those kinds of things in mind. Always be trying your best, at least, to think ahead so that you don't cause yourself any issues. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to start digging the holes, and I'll show you the holes and such when I'm ready to actually put it in place and start filling it with concrete. And then I'll show you the finished product. Well, here we go. So this is how I am preparing the hole. As you can see, I have a rectangular pad that will help with the first 3 or so inches. Give it some concrete, you know, just help stand it up. And then I have 2 holes for the legs. I don't usually put posts in concrete. They will rot out and go bad faster than they will if you leave them on the surface. However, surface mounts, similar to what I did on this post, keep it about 1 inch off of the concrete, which is great. But there's no way to do that with this and then keep this as you're cranking on it from wanting to waver and waver. It has to be stronger than that. So holes are about 10, 11, 12 inches deep. Then we got about 3 inches of concrete over that, and that'll keep it from wanting to move as we crank up the hose. Let me get it set in concrete and I'll show you what that looks like. Well, now we've got it standing erect where it should be. We've got the concrete filled in all around it. Got one of the caps on. We can't put this one on because of the support. And we went ahead and put a little extra concrete to create a path for any water that comes out of the spigot to flow out and get away from our posts. Got our stepping stones to step on so we don't step in mud or water. I'm not going to show you the hose reel. It's just a hose reel. But there you go. I hope you enjoy. Make sure you like, comment, share, and I'll see you next time.